The 2025 WNBA playoffs are underway, and there is no shortage of elite Big East alum still competing to it. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Built to Ball podcast. I am your host, T. Baker, and we are here on this podcast to talk about all things Big East women's basketball. And this week, I thought I would bring you some insight into the Big East women's basketball players that are still competing in the WNBA playoffs. And just a real quick note on the WNBA playoffs. If you're not tuning in, you got to tune in. Just great matchups, elite stars. This playoffs is pretty open, in my opinion. I mean, the Minnesota Lynx are the favorite, probably followed by the Las Vegas Aces. But Aces were pushed to a game 3 last night in Seattle. And, you know, when it's playoffs time, anything can happen, especially in a best of 3 first round series. And then for the semis, we go best of 5. And then for the first time ever, best of 7 for the finals. So I am locked in, and I hope that you are too. Today, we want to talk specifically about some of the stars that are still competing in the WNBA playoffs that had their foundations in the Big East. So these are players who competed either for their whole entire college careers or a portion of those college careers in the Big East Conference, and sort of what their journey was like in college and where they are today. So the first player that I'm going to highlight, and you'll see in these first couple, this is really UConn and Notre Dame heavy. First up, we are talking about Tiffany Hayes, or Tip Hayes if you're a real one. Tiffany Hayes was the first UConn player to wear the number 3 after Diana Taurasi graduated in 2004. So some historical significance there. And she competed at UConn from 2008 to 2012 and is currently competing with the number 8 seed Golden State Valkyries. She is a vet in this league, has been in the league again since 2012, had some on and off years where she was competing internationally, was able to get citizenship in Azerbaijan and compete in the 3x3 competition in the 2024 Paris Olympics. So has had quite the unique and diverse experience as a professional, not just in the WNBA, where she was drafted by Atlanta, played for Connecticut Sun, Vegas, you know, kind of competed with a couple different franchises, but now has found a really good landing spot in Golden State. I think is a veteran presence that a young team really needs, and played a big role in their getting to the playoffs as an expansion franchise. So to think a little bit back on her career at UConn, Tiffany Hayes was in sort of a golden era at UConn, which is a lot of eras. There were several of them, but this was really in particular the 2008 to 2012 era, where it was Maya Moore, Tina Charles. So Tiffany Hayes competed alongside them. She came into a UConn program that was in a title drought. They hadn't won since 2004 when she stepped in 2008 as a freshman, but then was able to lead them alongside, like I mentioned, Tina Charles, Maya Moore, 2 back-to-back undefeated seasons in 09 and 2010. And those wins were included in sort of UConn's 90-game winning streak, which at the time was the record. They later broke it with 111 in the Stewie era. So just ridiculous statistics that come out of UConn. But Tiffany Hayes, I'll be interested to see if she competes again this season. She is in the latter stages of her career, but I think found a really good fit as a veteran leader in Golden State. So I'm curious to see kind of how she feels at the end of this season, where we'll continue to see her compete, because she did previously retire. She competed for the Connecticut Sun, retired, came out of retirement to compete with Las Vegas, and now is again with Golden State through the expansion draft. Moving along, we're going to talk about Skylar Diggins-Smith. Prolific Notre Dame Fighting Irish alum, competed all 4 years in the Big East, including the final year that Notre Dame was in the Big East in 2013. So Notre Dame really emerged as one of UConn's fiercest rivals in that interconference rivalry. Just had so many fun years, but Skylar Diggins-Smith was the face of the Irish then. She was a 2-time Big East Player of the Year in 2012 and 2013. She was one of just a handful of players that in her college career scored 2,000 points pulled down 500 rebounds, dished out 500 assists, and had 300 steals in her career. So just the dynamic, versatile player that we know that she is today. She led the Notre Dame Fighting Irish to the Final Four in 3 consecutive seasons, 11, 12, and 13. Unfortunately, they never came back with that title. They were upset in 2011 by a Sidney Colson-led Texas A&M team, defeated by Baylor and Brittany Griner, really a just undefeated team in Brittany Griner's 2012 Baylor team, and then were defeated by UConn in 2013. But what's interesting about that 2013 competition is Notre Dame had won several times throughout that season against UConn because they were competing as conference rivals. They played twice in the regular season, and Notre Dame also beat them in the Big East tournament final, and it was just one of those epic sort of buzzer beater moments. Skylar Diggins-Smith was able to leave Notre Dame as a Big East champion, and unfortunately, I mean, that legacy of not having a national title, I think that probably is something she thinks about. But, you know, in the history book, really just an important part of that Notre Dame legacy, and also a Big East legacy before Notre Dame did move on in the following year after she graduated to the ACC. So next up, we are going to talk about someone who competed exactly 1 year with Skylar Diggins-Smith, Jewell Loyd. And Jewell Loyd also had a really epic college career. She was the Big East Freshman of the Year in 2013, and she beat out none other than Breanna Stewart, who we're going to talk about next, for that title. I just thought that was really interesting. We know that Stewie is one of the elite players of all time. 4 national titles at UConn. Again, we'll get into that in a bit. But the fact that Jewell Loyd won that Freshman of the Year in the Big East, I thought was really interesting. Shows the elite level of competition that she was playing at. And she competed for that 1 year alongside Skylar Diggins, which I think was really interesting. The two of them did compete alongside each other last season in Seattle as well, before Jewell moved on to Las Vegas, and now they're competing against each other in the WNBA playoffs. So there's this Notre Dame versus Notre Dame dynamic in that series. And I think what's so interesting about Jewell Loyd is also that she chose to leave college a year early. So she again started in that 2013 season. That 2012-2013 season was set to play until 2016, according to her class, her 4 years of eligibility. But she did decide to leave a year early after a loss to UConn in 2015, and she left early, and it was surprising at the time. It wasn't a thing you saw often. I know Notre Dame head coach Muffet McGraw had made some comments about it at the time of just like, I don't know why she would do this. The money's not there. Stay another year in college. And Jewell was ready to move on. She was ready to be a professional. She was drafted number 1 overall by the Seattle Storm. And if she hadn't left that year, she would have been in the same class as Stewie, who did get drafted first in 2016 by the Seattle Storm. And of course, they went on to win 2 national championships alongside Sue Bird, who just had this really nice end to her career. And then just Stewie and Jewell Loyd really formed that the core of that team when they won their 2 national championships. And then that does bring us to Breanna Stewart, who had perhaps, and this might not even be debatable because the numbers are there, the most prolific college career of any man or woman. I mean, she said she was going to win 4 national titles. She did it. She won most outstanding player, Final Four, each of those titles. Her resume is just absolutely stacked. And I wonder at times, like, did Jewell Loyd leave that extra year because she wanted the chance to be a number 1 pick? She didn't want to compete against UConn, which really was not going to lose in 2016. It didn't feel like, I mean, they won from 2013 to 2016, that Stewie era, where she was complemented by players like Nafisa Collier, Gabby Williams, Morgan Tuck, Mariah Jefferson. Like the list goes on and on, players who have made successful careers in the WNBA. And UConn was just kind of steamrolling people at that time. So, but it's interesting to see how those careers intersected, right? You had Skylar Diggins and Jewell Loyd competing, where Skylar was the senior mentor to Jewell's, freshman novice. And then they also competed against players that they would team up with in the WNBA and in USA basketball. So Stewie is really, obviously a player who has accomplished an incredible amount in her WNBA career, 2-time MVP, three-time WNBA champion, twice with Seattle, once last year with New York Liberty. Obviously has been a huge part of the WNBA, maybe one of the top three best players in the world over the past several years, and had her humble beginnings in the Big East. Only competed in the Big East for one season, because then UConn tried to chase that football money, went to the American Athletic Conference for 7 seasons, and now we're back in the Big East. After that didn't work out so well. So great to see, that legacy that she was able to build. Did not win Rookie of the Year. That went to Jewell Loyd, as I mentioned, and did not win a Big East tournament championship or regular season. Those both went to Notre Dame. So a notable missing piece of Stewie's otherwise prolific career in her 1 year competing in the Big East. The next player that I'm going to speak about, and this is a player who's been getting a lot of attention recently, still competing on the number 1 seed Minnesota, and that's Natisha Hiedeman. If you don't know about the Stud Buds, go learn about him. Just type it in. That is current teammates Courtney Williams and Natisha Hiedeman, just really finding ways to connect with fans through all of All-Star Weekend. We're featured on Vogue. So a player who is really kind of having her moment of publicity and really getting a chance to show her personality to the world, which I love to see. But she did compete at Marquette from 2015 to 2019. So as those, prolific UConn and Notre Dame programs transitioned out of the Big East, there was this bit of this vacuum in the conference where new programs stepped up, and that was Marquette. Natisha became their all-time leading scorer, the 2019 Big East Player of the Year, led them to their first ever Big East tournament title. And she, just really has been one of the cornerstones when you think about that program. Recently was announced that she's going to be inducted into the Marquette Hall of Fame, and has found herself a really successful career in the WNBA. It's not easy. Not a lot of players make it as professionals, but she's found a way, since being drafted in 2019, she spent several seasons with the Connecticut Sun alongside, at that time, actually Courtney Williams, who she's now teamed up with again in Minnesota, and they're the Stud Buds. So they have a long history together, and is a really reliable backup point guard for Minnesota, and is going to be a key part of their title run. So Natisha Hiedeman, Big East alum, don't forget it. And finally, Lexi Held. She is a DePaul alum who, again, during that period of time where Notre Dame and UConn were not in the conference, DePaul really stepped in and dominated during that time. So they won 3 straight Big East titles, while Lexi Held was a member of that team. She has all Big East honors, has a real legacy that she left on that DePaul program. In addition to winning those Big East titles, just a lot of individual stats that, really highlighted the value that she brought to Doug Bruno's team. Legendary Hall of Fame coach Doug Bruno, who's now retired. Congrats on your retirement. She played for Doug Bruno, and that's just another element of who she is benefiting from that level of coaching of really an elite coach like Doug Bruno. So she did graduate in 2022. So it's been a couple years, and she wasn't drafted immediately. She is now picked up by the Phoenix Mercury, who are again competing against the New York Liberty in the first round of the WNBA playoffs. Is a player who's averaging about 5 points a game, adds about a rebound and assist per game, doesn't get a tremendous amount of minutes, but adds some important depth to a team that is as newly constructed this season. They brought in, after Diana Taurasi and Brittany Griner left, they brought in Alyssa Thomas, and they brought in Satu Sabali. So there's a really new look in Phoenix, and Lexi Held is one of the bench rotation players that are competing on that team. So it's good to just see another player who maybe wasn't getting the national spotlight, but had an incredibly prolific Big East career land on a WNBA team and find some success. So just wanted to jump on today and talk a little bit about these players, these 6 players. They represent an era that begins in 2008 and ends all the way into 2022. So it's really interesting to see the many eras of Big East basketball and how that's playing into the current state of the WNBA teams that are still competing. So please follow all of our content that we're creating as the Big East season gets near. You're going to see a lot more content, and looking forward to continuing to highlight the elite talent that is Big East women's basketball. Until next time, this is T. Baker.